The Malaysian state of Johor has dissolved its legislative assembly, paving the way for a state election. Chief Minister Onn Hafiz Ghazi made that announcement after receiving royal consent from the state's regent, Tunku Ismail Sultan Ibrahim. And from CNA senior correspondent Afifah Ariffin joins us here in the studio. Afifah, you keep your eye on this, so this is not a huge surprise for you, and yet you were suggesting earlier, still the timing has surprised you.
Right. So when you asked whether this dissolution, the timing of it was a surprise, the answer is yes and no, because for several weeks now, we had already anticipated there were a lot of talks, rumours, speculations that the Johor state election could be dissolved, that they will be holding early polls, even though they do have a mandate until April 2027. And we saw political machineries already sort of mobilising their grassroots, in the state. Pakatan Harapan, the coalition under Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, had their national convention there just 2 weeks ago. And, a day before that, Barisan Nasional hit out. They declared that it intends to contest in all 56 state seats on its own without that partnership with Pakatan Harapan, although that's what they're doing at the federal level. So taken together, these developments have sort of fueled the speculation that Johor state elections will come a lot earlier than next year. But what many observers did not expect was for this announcement to happen today. And that's because just last week, we know that the Johor State Assemblyman received a memo saying that there will be a special assembly sitting on June 22nd. We also know that Barisan Nasional said that it wants to hold its Johor convention on 14th June. So many of these political watchers had assumed that the Chief Minister would then wait for these developments to happen before seeking consent from the region to dissolve the assembly. But that decision, as we saw, came much earlier than expected. So the surprise isn't that Johor is going to hold the state election. The surprise is very much the timing, because many people had expected that maybe it will happen, maybe in July, maybe in August, not so much dissolving on the 1st of June. As for why now, this will then be a question that many political observers will be debating about in the coming days. But perhaps from the state government's perspective, it is looking at how this current political conditions are maybe more favourable for it to sort of seek a fresh mandate now rather than waiting for maybe next year, closer to the end of the term. So as Johor is going into what's expected to be this very intense election season, there's also a broader reminder tonight about the tone of political campaigning. And earlier today, what we saw during the royal address at a ceremony held in conjunction with the King's birthday, Istana Negara, Malaysia's King Sultan Ibrahim acknowledged that election fever is indeed heating up. And so he urged political leaders to uphold proper conduct and to exercise caution when making public statements. So let's have a listen to what he said.
Elakkan provokasi di pertikaian tentang isu sensitif yang berkaitan dengan raja, bangsa dan agama, kerana ianya boleh menimbulkan kemarahan rakyat.
We've got 60 days now from the dissolution. What's next?
Right. So, like you said, the immediate focus will shift to the Election Commission, which will then, decide when the nomination and polling days will be held. The law states that a state election must be held within 60 days of when the assembly is dissolved. And so we're expecting that Johorians will probably go to the polls maybe sometime in July or August. But again, that's up to the Election Commission when it convenes. But what we'll closely be watching in the days to come is really the negotiations and the seat negotiations within the parties, the three main coalitions, Barisan Nasional, Pakatan Harapan, Perikatan Nasional. They're expected to contest very aggressively, and then they'll be moving quickly to finalise their candidates and really mobilise their party machinery.
All right, very quickly, and I'm combining two issues in one. So you mentioned the contestation of seats. BN has 40 of 56, PH, Pakatan Harapan, 12. This is from March 2022, and Barisan Nasional has 3, Muda just the 1. So we're looking ahead. What are we likely to see each? What kind of discussions? What kind of agreements? And this is important because this sets the tone for the fresh election cycle.
That's right. So this will be the first major electoral test in Peninsular Malaysia in some time. And so it will offer that sort of gauge a voter sentiment of Prime Minister Anwar's administration. So, like you said, for Barisan Nasional, Johor has long been regarded as its stronghold. And this is a key test on whether it can maintain that dominance from 2022. So like in the last round, like you said, 40 out of 56 state seats. But this time round, they're contesting entirely on their own again. And they are actually confident that they will be able to secure an even bigger mandate in the last round. For Pakatan Harapan, though, this time, again, because BN said it will contest all the seats on their own, PH has also said it will do the same. But this is really an opportunity for them to assess the support for the unity government in terms of its economic, in terms of its reform agenda. For Barisan Nasional, though, I mean, this election will be very closely watched as a test to see whether the coalition has sort of managed to overcome some of its internal leadership struggles that we know it's been facing for the last couple of months, whether it can organize itself between Bersatu and PAS and see how well they would do in the state election in Johor. But overall, you know, at a bigger level, on a national level, what we're seeing is whether this election could really provide clues of the political mood going ahead. It will be a very closely watched election because it will be a barometer for parties all across the country. The results will be very scrutinized by all of the major coalitions, not just for what it says about the support in Johor, but what it signals about voter sentiment, the political momentum, and that road and journey towards the next general elections.
All right, thanks for that, Afifah. Ariffin, I'm sure we'll be talking a lot to you about this election, Johor, Malacca, by year end, and of course, national elections when those happen. Thanks so much for joining us. Afifah Ariffin there, our studio correspondent.